Federal Executive Council approves more road infrastructure projects.
It's the second phase of the Abuja-Kefi-Akwanga road, which was awarded in 2015.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on electronic voting, plus significance of the Ramadan fast.
Since the return of Nigeria to democratic governance in 1999, stakeholders in the electoral process continue to canvass for new strategies to improve the integrity of the voting process at both state and federal levels.
Now, those intentions have often led to the introduction of a wide variety of measures, including lately the introduction of the card readers and other electronic machines in recent times.
Although the electoral umpire had earlier indicated its intention to introduce electronic voting in 2019 general elections, but such hope was dashed as electronic machines will not be used for the general elections.
However, one of the state independent electoral commissions heralded a new chapter in the history of elections in the country by using the electronic voting machine for its local government polls. And
Kingsley, available reports show that this is the first time electronic voting machine was used in Nigeria's voting system and Africa's second electronic voting elections.
That's right. Now, the second, of course, as you just indicated, is Kaduna State, which is a sub-national government. The first on the continent is actually Namibia. Now, but in terms of what happened in Kaduna on the 12th of May, how did the electronic voting go? Were there challenges with the e-voting machines? And is the technology easy to operate? And how will this, or how could this be replicated in other states and by extension when we're having general elections? Of course, that will be from 2023. Now, those are the questions we shall be taking a look at in one of our discussion segments. On Good Morning Nigeria today, reaching you live as always from the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I thank you for being with us. It's been a wet morning here in the Federal Capital Territory. We hope it's not too wet wherever you are. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Welcome to the program.
And I am Kieran Umai, also welcoming you to today's edition of the program. And apart from the e-voting, we also intend to look at the Ramadan fast, which began earlier today nationwide.
All right, now also with us, we have our regular companion segments, and these include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment. For now, we're taking the morning news with Ogwa Vivian Onyedibia. Hi, Ogwa.
Hi, Kingsley and Kirian. Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to the news. Muslims in Nigeria joined their counterparts in other parts of the world to begin the one-month Ramadan fast. In a message to the nation, President Muhammadu Buhari says fasting is not just merely meant to stay hungry or thirsty, but an opportunity to strive for inner purification and self-accountability. The president says it is meant to inculcate righteousness and discipline. He enjoins fasting Muslims to increase their love for humanity, acts of charity, kindness, generosity, and gratitude. The president also urges Muslims to emulate Prophet Muhammad by spending generously on the poor and the needy during the period. President Buhari calls on Nigerians to always remember men and women who are less fortunate than themselves and to help the government in confronting the challenges facing the nation. He prays Allah to grant Muslims the strength to successfully complete the fasting. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has called on leaders and stakeholders of APC to build a united front that can propel the governing party to victory in the forthcoming governorship election in Ekiti State. Addressing the Southwest leaders of the party, the president said everything must be done towards ensuring that this time around, the will of the people is not subverted.
We must do everything to ensure we do not allow any subversion of the will of the people this time around. Now that we have a candidate, all hands must be on deck to achieve positive results. I want to appeal to all of you to see this as a collective mission to restore equity and promote development. On my part, let me assure you that you can count on my support.
And to the legislature, where the Senate has passed the 2018 appropriation bill tagged Budget of Consolidation. The appropriation bill is now more than 9.1 trillion naira as against 8.6 trillion naira as earlier presented by the executive.
This bill is read the third time and passed. A lot has been said on the areas of how we could have passed the budget earlier, and I think there's definitely room for improvement in the area of cooperation and collaboration between the executive and legislative arm of government.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has passed the 2018 budget with an increase in the figures. The increase was as a result of reduction of deficit occasioned by improvement of the oil price benchmark and the need for the government to prepare for the unforeseen vagaries in the national expenditure.
Bill read the third time and passed.
In security, there was this increase of 46.72 billion. Health, we have 57.15 billion. Power, works and housing, 106.50 billion.
And talking infrastructure, the Federal Executive Council has approved over $995 million contract for the second phase of the Abuja-Kefi-Akwanga-Makudi Road. The project is expected to enhance transportation between the nation's capital and other states for socio-economic development. The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting.
Phase of the Abuja-Kefi-Akwanga road, which was awarded in 2015, for which finance is now available. So this is the second phase, for which the finance is not yet available, but the award is a precondition to now get the loan from the China Exim Bank, so that by the time work on the first phase finishes, we can seamlessly continue the second phase all the way to Makurdi.
The National Economic Council Subcommittee on NNPC remittances into the Federation account held a meeting with Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. The meeting expressed dissatisfaction with the NNPC over its inability to justify the claim on the sudden increase of local consumption of PMS from 30 million litres per day to 60 million. Chairman of the subcommittee and that of the Governors Forum, Abdulaziz Yari, says both the federal and state governments have called for further explanation on outstanding remittances into the Federation account.
It's paid from 2015 to date, and how much is outstanding. And we directed them that they should suspend the payment until when this is proof, so that we can give the further directives, and that one is also achieved.
The subcommittee said it has directed that all filling stations within 10 kilometers range from Nigerian borders should be closed for now until all issues are resolved. And moving on, the attention of the Nigerian police force has been drawn to press statement credited to the Senate President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Bukola Saraki, of alleged plot against him by the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris. The force therefore wishes to categorically state that there is no iota of truth in the allegation and false assertion by the Senate President of a plot against him by the IGP to implicate the Kwara State government and the Senate President in any matter. A statement by Force Public Relations Officer ACP Jimoh Moshood adds that the force will do everything within the ambit of the law to ensure justice, no matter whose ox is God. And wife of the President, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, has called on members of the Association of Lady Pharmacists of Nigeria to continue to remain key stakeholders in creating awareness for the establishment of functional rehabilitation centers in the country. This is to fast-track the reformation processes of victims of drug abuse and other illicit substances.
The next step is to, pack them to a rehab center and make sure that they have gotten a meaningful rehabilitation before taking them back to society.
Well, that's the news for now. Do stay tuned as Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kirian after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Nigerian wire to this lie.
Most of us believe in buying anything foreign. We believe that if a product is imported, then it must be better.
The combo mentality.
Patronize Nigeria, and you will see that Nigeria too can put a smile on your face.
I don't know that Nigeria is doing good thing now.
Many agree and many disagree.
I hope these are not made in Nigeria.
Can made in Nigeria goods put a smile on your face too?
Of course. While proving the quality of our products.
Find out in Made in Nigeria. This week's episode of a rib-cracking comedy, Professor John Bull, and laugh like never before.
How much is my total?
Your money is 32,000 naira.
32,000 naira for just a pant and a top?
Because it's foreign.
Flash, come and pay now. Flash, Baba.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow,
the largest data network. Glow Unlimited.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Every day, I see patients who come to me suffering from infectious diseases caused by germs, from typhoid to diarrhea, flu, cough. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily when we use the toilet, from our door handles, from other surfaces. We transfer to others without realizing. That is why we recommend Dettol Antiseptic Liquid. Protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure.
NTA Television College, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, has over the years maintained her reputation of putting together courses that are highly relevant to manpower needs of the broadcast industry. The college is again organizing a 4-week course on English grammar and pronunciation for broadcasters, slated for 21st May to 15th June 2018. Come and take advantage of our top-notch and intensive course designed to grow the skills of television presenters, script writers, news editors, journalists, hosts of live events in just 4 weeks. Venue, multipurpose complex, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Fee is 100,000 naira per participant, accommodation inclusive. Be there. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you can be.
And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, business time. Federal government launches online investment guide to accelerate ease of doing business initiative Central Bank of Nigeria injects fresh $210 million into the economy to sustain liquidity and stabilize the market. Details of these and more on Business News with Joy Uzo.
Welcome to Business News. We'll start with our report on boosting investments in Nigeria's business environment. With the support of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission (NIPC) has developed an online investment guide on Nigeria, iGuide on Nigeria. The guide is an easy-to-use online platform providing investors with up-to-date and pertinent information on the processes, procedures, and basic costs of doing business in Nigeria to enable investors get access to the basic information they need to make better informed decisions on Nigeria as a preferred investment destination. It provides information on starting business, labor, production factors, land, taxes, investors' rights, growth sectors, and opportunities. It is a marketing tool as information on Nigeria's investment processes and procedures are on one platform for easy access. In another development, following a record 37.3% increase from what was shared by the federal government, 36 states and 774 local government councils in the first quarter of 2017, Director of Communications and Advocacy, Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, Oji Ogbunanya Oji, in an exclusive interview with NTA Business News, said the 1.938 trillion naira disbursed by the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee to the three tiers of government in the first quarter of 2018 should not deter the federal government's drive towards diversifying the economy.
We expect this increase to happen, but it's not something that we should rely on. The greatest challenge we have is relying on oil and gas revenue all the time for our budgeting. We need to tighten the news on corruption. We need to close leakages. We need to be more efficient in the management of public funds. We need to be able to account for whatever funds that are put under our care for government transactions. These are the minimal things that will make our country to achieve much with less.
And in another round of intervention, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, on Tuesday injected a sum of $210 million into the interbank foreign exchange market to boost liquidity in the system. The figures released by the bank in Abuja indicate that it allocated a sum of $100 million to dealers in the wholesale sector, just as the small and medium enterprises segment and Invisibles each received the sum of $55 million. Validating the releases, the acting director of Corporate Communications Department at the bank, Isaac Okarafo, said that the continued interventions in the interbank foreign exchange market was mainly to ensure sustained liquidity and stability in the market. It's now time for a quick check on how the equities market fared Wednesday. Trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed on a positive note, with the NSE All-Share Index appreciating by 0.93% to close at 40,992.97 basis points in 4,000 deals, valued at over 4 billion naira. The financial services sector recorded the highest patronage, with Diamond Bank, Zenith Bank, and Guaranty Trust Bank topping the chart. Nestle, Dangote Cement, and Nigerian Breweries topped the gainers table, while Okomu Oil, Cement Company of Northern Nigeria, and Forte Oil were amongst the least traded equities Wednesday. That does it on Business News. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Next for us now, we'll go to the front pages of today's newspapers for a review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebi, is already here with us this morning. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good
morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Nigeria.
Baya, good to see you. I hope you enjoyed the rain this morning. Pretty windy.
Yes. All right. We have a number of newspapers here to review this morning, and I have a Daily Independent with me. The main headline this morning on Daily Independent is 2018 budget raised to 9.12 trillion naira. Not done unilaterally, says the National Assembly. With two riders here, says increase due to oil benchmark of $51 per barrel, and then bars Buhari from borrowing or spending outside appropriation. The story is on page 4 of the Independent. Now, there are other stories. Now you could see the photograph of the former governor of Plateau State with the EFCC men there. And there are stories besides that photograph. Then gunmen killed 3 policemen, kidnapped Syrian national in Sokoto. And with the rider, 12 feared killed in Delta communities over Cold War. That's on page 5. Now, I will resign if herdsmen crisis takes religious coloration, says the Vice President Oshibajo. That's on page 5. Now, we are talking with Boko Haram to release Leah Sharibu, Lai Mohammed. And now, below the photograph, Senate to meet Buhari over alleged attempt by IGP to frame up Saraki. With the 2 runners there, youth protest in Ilorin, says Saraki fighting for the masses. Police warn him over compromising murder investigation. Yeah, Kinsley.
All right. But the stories that you read from the Independent, you also have some of those stories on the front pages of both the New Telegraph and the Punch newspaper. But the display given to the stories, of course, will differ because the papers themselves are different. Now, for the New Telegraph, the second lead story is right at the foot of the front page. Second lead story, that's the lead story that you are seeing on the screen now. The second lead story is right at the foot of the front page, and it has to do with the budget. And it says, National Assembly passes 9.12 trillion naira 2018 budget, pegs oil at $51 per barrel. And of course, you have a number of riders there indicating the increases in the budget that have now shot it to 9.12. And lawmakers, that's one of the riders, subsidy must be captured in budget. And governors probe subsidy claims. That's the second lead story for the New Telegraph. But for the Punch newspaper, it's above the nameplate. And it's 2 related stories, by the way, above the nameplate, 2 of the 3 headlines there that says, at last, National Assembly passes 9.12 trillion naira budget. And then above that is the headline, governors attack NNPC, want petrol subsidy payments from 2015 probed. So those are that. But an economic story is one of the earpieces that you have there beside the nameplate. External reserves drop for first time in 8 months. That's on page 36 of the paper. And then, Bayo, let's take this stories first. But I think Kirian already read a story on the face-off between Saraki, Senate President, and the Inspector General of Police. So let me just take those stories as well from New Telegraph. It's the lead story for the New Telegraph newspaper as we return to it. IGP, that's Inspector General of Police, plotting to frame me for murder. That's according to Saraki, who is Senate President. And Idris is IGP to Senate President, will get to the root of Kwara killings. Senators, police withdrawing our orderlies. Youth protest. Kwara government kicks against transfer of suspects to Abuja. That story is in greater detail on page 3. You can look at the front page there. There are excerpts from the statements by both the Senate President and the Inspector General of Police. Kirian. And
the Nigerian Tribune also has that story as the main headline. Saraki says IGP plans to frame him up for cultism. With some other writers here, Senate sets up 10-man delegation to meet Buhari over the issue. Now, police says allegation not true, warn against ploy to obstruct investigation of hired assassins. And of course, protesters storm Kwara State government in support of the Senate President. Bayo.
Well, the story is dominating all the papers, and the Vanguard puts it that Saraki, police IG trade blames over call suspects. The Nation says Saraki IGP fight dirty over arrest of killer calls. Well, the Senate President yesterday briefed his colleagues in the chamber that his governor, Abdul Fattah Ahmed, informed him of cult suspects about to be prosecuted in Kwara have now been ordered to be brought over to Abuja. And the allegation is that there's a plan to put these suspects under duress to change their statements made at Ilorin to implicate the Senate president. And the statement, the police also had put up a statement saying that the allegations are unfounded and are unbelievable. The statement in by the police from the High Command said that there is no iota of truth in allegation of false assertion. He says the fact is that it's not the first time police are transferring persons from one place to the other. They say 6 suspects have been arrested and they have confessed to alleged killing of 11 persons in Kwara State. The victims were allegedly killed on the instructions of their sponsors. And the police, in determining to get to the root of it, IG directed that they should be brought to the headquarters for thorough investigation, and said it's not the first time persons who were involved in killing Ile-Ife, Southern Kaduna, Zaki Biam, were all brought to the police headquarters for thorough investigation for prosecution. But this is perhaps the second times that you're having clashes with the Inspector General of Police and the authority of the Senate. You remember the conflict over the arrest of Senator Dino Melaye and the Inspector General of Police being invited. At first, it was said that the IGP was invited to come and explain the killings in the country. The IGP indicated from a letter written to him that the emphasis of the invitation was concerned about Senator Dino Melaye, who allegedly had complicity in suspects that were being arrested. But the concern here is that at the last count, a senator had been taken to trial in Lagos for an alleged fraud. Only yesterday, another senator was taken to trial in Jos for fraud. A senator too, in fact, the Senate and House have appointed a committee. They are investigating 2 senators in the complicity about the invasion at the National Assembly. The point is this: our senators are potentially third citizens in this country because every senator is a potential Senate president. And they have an appellation, distinguished senators. They must comport themselves in that context of distinguished senators. If there are criminal elements among them, they should not be shielded. However, politicians should not be hounded unnecessarily, because when we are getting to the general elections of 2019, you find this kind of thing coming up. So the police itself must be above board. If there are criminalities, nobody is expecting them to condone it. However, they should not be indulging themselves in the politicization of criminality, while the senators themselves should not cover up their compatriots in the Senate if they are found to be involved in any criminality. They must end that appellation of distinguished Nigerians.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much. Let
me take on some of these headlines before we go to the editorials. Now,
not yet time for the editorial.
Okay, now the new Tribune, or Nigerian Tribune rather, we have some other stories there besides the photograph there. The photograph here shows the protesters, at the Kwara State Government House for the Senate President. And besides that, by the side of that, you have other stories. Now, Senate loses application on stay of execution. That's on Omo Agege issue. The story is on page 33. And then below that, have APC appeal panel affirms Imo Congresses on page 34. That's where you have greater details of that story. Then court bars EFCC, police, DSS from searching Wike's house. Wike is actually the governor of Rivers State. Now, that story is on page 29. And gunmen kidnap Syrian engineer in Sokoto, kill 3 policemen. Details on page 10 of the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's come to the New Telegraph. Above the nameplate of New Telegraph, Petard, this has to do with pensions. Petard suspends 22,000 pensioners from payroll. Monthly pension bill hits 7.8 billion naira. That's the first rider. And second rider, 19,000 retirees having issues over BVN. And below the nameplate, you have a window of 4 headlines. We'll take one of them. Nigerians open 6.5 million bank accounts in 3 months. Those are the headlines from the New Telegraph. That's the much that we can take. And very quickly, back to the Punch newspaper. The lead story, of course, we didn't touch on it, but it was read differently. in terms of headline by my colleague, Kirian a moment ago. And this is what the Vice President is saying with regard to the ongoing crisis involving herders and farmers. I didn't beg to be VP. I can leave at short notice. And it says that it's asking a question, how can anyone possibly say that the killing of women and children doesn't matter because he is Vice President or because he is President? How is that possible? That's a question that is asking there. And then there's an obituary right at the foot of the front page of the Punch newspaper. An obituary there. Nollywood mourns Amoge campus. Aisha Abimbola. That's on page 40. That's what we have there. Amoge campus, dead. And the story is on page 40. Bio. The editorial we're having this morning is on INEC and the voter register.
Yes.
And it's from the Punch newspaper. From the Punch newspaper, and it says INEC and the voter register. It says that all stakeholders must ensure that the register is credible. But in doing that, it says that INEC has reported that millions of fresh voters since last July have continued to queue for several hours without being registered, particularly in heavily populated places. That INEC has to address the challenge by faced by prospective registrants by deploying more resources in terms of manpower and materials.
Well, let's start with the story about PTAD. PTAD is the Pension Transitional Arrangements Directorate, and it has now cleared his audience table. It says it now have 237,000 verified pensioners. However, they have a population of about 22,000 pensioners whose pension have been suspected because they have implications with being on the payroll. However, there are others too whose bank verification number are having challenges, and because of that, they may not be able to get their pension. But my concern is that somebody who has retired, he has served the nation at the best of his prime. Now in his theater, because of challenges, he's now been denied his pension. It is clarified, those who are on the former pension scheme, because the contributory pension scheme started in the year 2004. However, those who retired before that time are still on the old pension scheme, and the Pension Transition Arrangement Directorate is supposed to take charge of them. They have been able to clear the audience table, but they have to do that quite rapidly. And one must commend their initiative. They consider the age of most pensioners, and sometimes they actually take the services closer to the pensioners. But however, they must wipe the tears of these pensioners, particularly those who now have challenges with their bank verification number. Their pension is their only source of income. If it is stopped, they are going to have serious challenges. Now coming to the editorial. The editorial actually is still happening on the alleged underage voters in the Kano registration. That has been cleared by the by the Independent National Electoral Commission that was not on their payroll, on their register. However, the ongoing continuous voter registration, there have been alleged challenges. Some people will have to wait several hours before they get registered. And the slow process is becoming a serious discouragement for people who want to register. However, there is also an opportunity of proof filtering the voter register, because before the elections, there will be an opportunity for the register to be pasted for claims and objections. And so it will go a long way.
Time is not on our side for now, but before we let you go, there's this story that Crystal also read there in one of the national dailies there. That's on the Oshebajo. Go to Blueprint,
yes, okay.
Blueprint newspaper. Now, the main headline, Oshebajo, that's a vice president on killings. I will resign if I must trade off my faith. With 3 riders, Senate summons SSS, military and police. Northern Christians want end of menace. And of course, insurgents kill 6 vigilantes in Adamawa. That's on page 6. So that's where you get details of those stories. And now, high number of political parties, not a challenge, says INEC.
Those reactions from the vice president is during his visit to Benue. You know, of recent, federal government announced about 10 billion naira for rehabilitation in states whereby we've had this crisis, herders, farmers crisis, and other militants and bandits who have been killing people. However, he was trying to dispel some of the allegations and rumor that the killing of women and children is something that government is not concerned about, or the religious imputation that has been given to the harder, famous crisis.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much. Just one for the road. This is from page 5 of the Punch newspaper. You can see the photograph on the headline, page 5 of the Punch newspaper. And the headline is, Ogun proprietor when principal tie pupils to crosses for lateness. This happened at Meteorite Standard School, Ayetoro, and the 2 pupils were tied to crosses where they were flogged for coming late to school. Of course, on Wednesday, the police, the Ogun State Police Command arrested the proprietor and the principal of the school. Ogun proprietor and principal tied pupils to crosses for lateness.
That's child abuse?
That's a child abuse.
All right, Bayo, that's the much we can take. I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we're having 2 items to deal with today. Ramadan began today. That's one of the topics. But first, we shall be dealing with electronic voting, which had its premiere in Kaduna last weekend.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual.
You have no
for the three you are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
Welcome. You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigeria homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mom to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it is made.
Correct.
And how they cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Move now! The red light won't kill you! Move now!
To the disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say I no go dey do am again. Because change begins with me.
Let's cross the other side of the road.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge. Because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be won't carry me past where they go.
Make they stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go they stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, over the years, some stakeholders in the electoral process have canvassed for the use of electronic voting in order to improve the credibility of elections. Last weekend, Kaduna State set the pace by using electronic voting machines and the conduct of the local government elections. That's the topic we are taking today. And we have guests with us here in the Abuja studios as well as at our Kaduna Network Center. Kirian?
All right, now joining us to discuss the first topic is the Deputy Director, ICT, INEC, in the person of Ukemwe Pascal. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, and we also have Ezenwa Mwago. He's the Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. Ezenwa is actually a regular guest on this program. It's good to have you again today, Ezenwa.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, and from our Kaduna Network Center, we're being joined by Dr. Saratu Binta Diko Audu. She's the chairperson of the Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission. Dr. Binta Diko Audu, pleasure to have you join us. Also there with you, I'm not sure who exactly is one, but I'm sure, of course, you will, the chairperson would identify herself presently. And Rebecca Sako John is also there in the Kaduna Network Center, a human rights and development activist, as well as Executive Director, Legal Awareness for Nigerian Women. Ladies, a pleasure to have you both on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, now just before we kick off with our first set of questions, let's listen into this background report.
The 1999 general elections that ushered in democratic rule in Nigeria was said to have had some challenges, and efforts were made subsequently to address those glitches to make the electoral process more credible. It is in this light that various strategies are being introduced to make it free and fair. One of such strategies is the use of technology in the electoral process, and this led to the use of card reader in the 2015 general elections. As a way of improving the process, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, proposed to use electronic voting machine for the subsequent elections, but that seems to be impossible for the forthcoming general elections. However, the Kaduna State government has led the campaign for the use of electronic voting machine in Nigeria by testing the workability of the technology in its local government elections. The system worked well, even though not without some glitches.
To be honest, the process is superb. It's a very welcome development.
And for the first time in the history of the country, using electronic voting, it's fantastic.
Very simple and very okay. It's very good.
Kaduna State is the first state in Nigeria to use technology in voting and the second in Africa.
We want a fair, credible and transparent election. We do not care whether we win or lose as a party, but we want to give an example that Nigerians, Africans can do credible elections.
Can this technology be replicated nationwide in our electoral process? Is it adaptable and easily operational? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be providing answers to these and more shortly.
And gentlemen and ladies, you are welcome. And let's begin with the chairperson of the Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission. Well, she has not been identified. She's the one in yellow. Madam, you're most welcome to the program. Now, tell us, you monitored as well as observed this. Why the adoption of e-voting in Kaduna State, and how did the machine work on the day that it was premiered in your state?
Well, electronic voting in Kaduna State was introduced to make the elections transparent. You know, in democracy, the will of the people is supposed to drive democracy. And so the government of Kaduna State decided that they were going to allow the people to choose who they wanted to govern them, to take control of their resources. And that's why the electronic voting system was introduced. On election day, it worked perfectly. I think I saw few clips of people's reactions to what happened on election day. It worked perfectly. The failure rate was less than 0.5%, and I think that is absolutely incredible, but that's what happened. We are very happy with it. The governor is excited about it, and I think he deserves all the credit for introducing this and for saying that it works. So it is workable in Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Diko Audu, tell us something about the time it took, length of time it took between the conceptualization to say, look, so we have to use e-voting and the arrival of those machines and actual deployment for the elections. How long was this? How many months? How many years?
Well, when this commission, that's the commission I had, came on board, we started talking about electronic voting because the governor told us he was interested in going electronic. Initially, we thought that meant just using the card reader, but he made it clear that no, he wanted to go the whole hog. So we started thinking about how this would be possible. We've been in office now about 2.5 years, and so it's taken about 2.5 years to get us where we are today.
And let's remain there in Kaduna. Let's talk to Rebecca. Rebecca, you monitored the election, or you may have also voted during that election. What's your reaction? You know, what's your take on the application of an e-voting system?
First of all, I need to commend the Kaduna State government and SECOM for this very noble initiative, and a lot of people who voted indicated that it was very easy. Actually, we had held several sessions with SECOM on the electronic voting machine where stakeholders raised observations, reservations on how it was going to work, and they foresaw that it may not really work well, but we didn't have any problems or any complaints from anybody about how easy it was to vote. A lot of people said it was quite easy. Within a minute or two, you would have voted and gone your way. So I would say the electronic voting machine worked very well, apart from some of those that had some technical faults here or there. Or I also think the polling unit staff, some of them were not able to operate the machine very well. But that's, from what we got from observers, possibly because some of them were ill-experienced. Some even claimed that they changed those that were trained with a new set of people on election day. But I cannot really verify that. But I would say that the electronic voting machine is a very good initiative, and I think we should use it in subsequent elections.
Okay, now before we come to our guests in the Abuja studios, one other question for the chairperson of the Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission. Did you have any challenge with unlettered voters, which is often a big issue that we have in the course of general elections in Nigeria?
Well, we verified our voters by the permanent voters card and the voter register, which INEC produced. That was the same register that was used in 2015. We have not received any reports of people voting who are not, excuse me, accredited or who are not in the voter register. The elections went really very well. We didn't have any challenges as to that aspect of the elections. Like Rebecca said, a few challenges came up with the machine and with the operators. We've received those reports, and sometimes, you know, people have a fright of a crowd, and I think that may have been responsible for some of the operators not being able to operate the machines. But we did deploy technical staff across the state who were able to address the issues as they arose, and we had pretty good success with that.
All right. Well, thank you both for your opening comments on this conversation. We will be returning to you as the program progresses. Now back to Abuja, and I'd like to ask Ukemwa Pascal, who is an ICT-based person, the headquarters of INEC here in Abuja. What's your take on this? You know, you monitored the election, and knowing fully well that it was an ICT-based voting system. What's your comment?
Would like to commend the Kaduna SEC for this bold attempt, and we're still investigating or just monitoring the results to see how well it's performed on various aspects: technology, process, people, and then I'm sure we'll communicate later.
Well, the corollary question to what my colleague asked should be: is electronic voting rocket science?
It's not rocket science, but there are three aspects. One is technology. That can be very simple. That can be, but two things then come into play: the process and the people. You asked the question about lettered voters, accreditation process of that. You asked the question about the voter register. Then the people actually manning the equipment. That's another issue. So those three have to come together for it to have a perfect system. Technology is virtually easy, but just the other things, the other components around it.
But, you know, the question he put to you, I believe that the reason for that is, you know, because presently INEC is saying that Nigeria cannot deploy e-voting for the next election. But if it's not a rocket science, as you rightly posited, you know, what is stopping us from doing that? But before you talk on that, let's
yeah, because somebody pointing left hanging, it says there are three aspects to this. That's the one before we're going to give it time. It says, look, technology, process, and people. But you didn't explain process. What is the process, the rocket science aspect of it?
No, the process, like I said, the technology is not the rocket science. The technology itself is not the rocket science. The process is, when you look at, okay, here they have looked at verification of voters. They've looked at for us, we look at when we're looking at elections, we look at election day. What is going to happen on election day? People are going to come, queue. People are going to come, queue, get accredited, then be given ballot papers and allowed to vote. That is a process for election day. Before election day, looking at deployment of machines, deployment of material. So all these logistics have to come into place when you're deploying a machine. And then you look at also how the people. Sometimes do you force a technology down people's throats, or do you bring them along gradually? INEC is in the process of bringing people along. I think that the transition from the manual process to electronic is becoming widely accepted, or 95% accepted. That is why Kaduna can even go the next stage into the actual, what we'll call the e-balloting. Okay. So that is why, because we've brought the country up to this stage where they now appreciate technology, they can now go to the next stage. Like I said, INEC has observed what is going on there, and will make its own assessments. And it's even a very, very short time. Kaduna, 2 years, 1 state. Nigeria, 37 states. Almost 100 and, okay, if you're looking at the voter rates, about 70 million people. The amount of work that you need to do to deliver in Kaduna, and the amount of work you need to deliver nationwide, are two different.
All right, but I believe that.
I said Pascal is an ICT person. Yeah. So are you extrapolating that for 36 states you have to multiply it by 2.5, which is the number of years it took Kaduna to get there to work? And then if you add the FCT, you say 2.5 years times 37. Is that what you are suggesting? No, like I said. No, but we'll pause you in the meantime and get into the details. SN1 go. What's your take on this? You've monitored elections around the country. And what's your take on this?
Well, I think that we need to be a little cautious. I see we're raising expectations. And Kaduna, for me, is much more sophistry than substance. Really, what you have seen in Kaduna shouldn't be used particularly to push the argument for electronic voting. And I'm surprised that Pascal is not unpacking it. Because it's a whole, we are going electronic already. The whole idea about PVC, permanent voters cards, what do you call the twin of it,
card reader,
the card reader, and all of that, and then the back end of it. Because yes, you can do this balloting, but what about e-collation? We didn't see e-collation. We saw voting, and then we are not being given the whole picture. There is not yet opportunity for learning, and you know, I think the Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission should at least remove the independent for now, because this is not their initiative. From the conversation they are going on, it continues to reel into the whole idea of the overbearing influence of chief executives on what should be independent. So first and foremost is that we need to understand the topography of Kaduna. We need to understand the reach of this initiative. You asked one critical question that nobody answered. The unlettered people. What is the number of people who could use this? And in all the local governments in Kaduna, how penetrating was the use? We've not been able to get to that. So this excitement about, Kaduna has used the first e-voting thing needs to come with a lot of caution. Otherwise, we'll push the country. Otherwise, we're going to push the country into haste. And it is deliberate. I can tell you that it is deliberate. I'm not going to tell you that there's a predetermined outcome. Because if you look at 1905, you are going to see that there was electronic creativity in coming to that point where you are able to look at the Kaduna temperature and then come on. So local government in sub-national governments is still a challenge, and we cannot use it to push INEC to go the way it should go at this particular time.
Please, if you recall, because a short while ago, Dr. Audu made it clear that the unlettered were taken care of from her submission. Well, she may have to explain that in the course of this program. But the issue is this: you are now making, from what you have said, many Nigerians will begin to think that it's becoming a record stuff that I'm talking about, because it depends on it's all about procurement. It's all about training of the operators. Okay, and another thing is deploying it. Now, he worked in Namibia. Does it mean that he cannot work? I want you to take it on this. Does it mean he cannot work in Nigeria?
No, Kilian, that's not what I'm saying. If you remember, and my brother here knows this, that we've been pushing, let's join the children of the light. But I'm saying, please do not use Kaduna. The reason is that it's a whole lot more complicated process. And Pascal talked about taking the people along. What level of enlightenment, what level of advocacy followed that deployment? How much did the unlettered people understand the use of that technology? We need to interrogate it and not take it on face value, because first, when Dr. Audu started, she said that they had no challenges. I listened to her carefully, that there was no challenges, until Rebecca came in and began to tell us the reports from observers from different places. First, in many places, there were use of temporary voters card. Okay? So these reports are coming in from different places. We need to take all of this and see what is the opportunity for learning. That's the reason I put that radar, that we need to be cautious.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, we have seen both Rebecca Sako-John and Diko Audu at our Kaduna Network Center. Let's take first the Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission chairperson. I would like you to respond to the issues raised by Ezenwa Wangu right here with us in the Abuja studios. In particular, two issues that I would like you to respond to. What was the reach of the e-voting in Kaduna? You have 23 local governments, I believe, were all the 23 local governments and all the polling units served in the course of the elections last Saturday? That's first leg. Next question. take us through also the, if you like, the value chain of the e-voting, e-ballot, e-collation, and e-results.
Thank you very much. I listened very carefully to Ezenwa as he made his case against Kaduna State. I'd like to say that the machine is a very simple machine. We took this machine to every ward. We have 255 wards in Kaduna State. We took this machine to every ward in this state and kept it there for 3 days to allow people to interact with it and interface with it. The reports we got were fantastic. People were excited about it. Concerning the elections, we took machines to every local government, every ward, every PU. People were very excited about the machine. It is such a simple machine to use. There are just 2 buttons on the machine and a screen that displays the logos of all the political parties that we have in that we have in Nigeria that were contesting that had candidates in the election. And all a voter needed to do is identify the logo of the candidate he wants to vote for. The logo will be expanded, enlarged for him to confirm that that's the logo, then press an OK button if that's what he wants. If for any reason he made a mistake, he presses a cancel button, which takes him back to the home screen. So it's a very simple machine. It's simpler than the phone that we all use. And we know that no matter how rural a community is in Nigeria, you'll find the phones, you'll find people using their hand phones. So this machine is really very, very simple and very friendly. Concerning the e-voting and e-collation and so we did have a back-end system where we watched the elections as they progressed on the field. So we could see what was happening. We could see the results developing on the field because we do have, we transmitted results also electronically, as well as saved on a flash drive. So the system was very simple and it's credible and it's secure, because one of the things we wanted to do was ensure that the voters' vote was secure, that the people's mandate was not stolen from them. Concerning whether this is usable or feasible for the entire nation, I do appreciate Pascal's position that dealing with 3.5 million voters is very different from dealing with 100 and whatever, how many million voters. It's quite challenging. But you see, there is a facility on this machine that can actually read your smart card reader, read your permanent voter's card and your fingerprint. Both of these can be deployed on the machine to make it much simpler for voters to use. I believe that it's possible for Nigeria to go totally electronic, maybe not in the 2019 elections, but in future elections. And I think the Nigerian populace is quite enlightened, and they are quite receptive to this new technology.
Well, I'm wondering, Madam Chairperson, thank you very much. Tell us, how were the results collated after voting? And then how were the final results also announced? Were all of these e-processes? Did you have a transmission, for instance, from the e-voting machine to some central collation point, and then the final results ratified by the agents of the parties?
Yes, results for every PU were announced at the PU, that's the polling unit. At the end of voting, the machine prints out a summary of activity on that machine. And that summary is read out to those who were there, the party agents, security agents, and whoever else was still there, on a party basis. And the results are signed by the poll official, the security agents there, and the party agents there. Then it's transmitted to the collation center, the ward collation center initially, where it's now manually collated. I agree that we had to manually collate that, but the agents, the party agents were there, the security agents were there. At the end of collation, at the ward level, the result is announced there at the collation center. Then the results are now transmitted to the local government, where you collate results for the chairman of the local government. You know, at the ward level, we have councillors, so the councillor result is announced at the ward level. At the local government collation center, results from all the wards are brought in and collated manually to determine the winner of the local government chairman. So those results are announced at the local government. We did not want to announce results at headquarters because elections belong to the people. They belong where the people voted. And so we said, that's what our law actually says, that the results should be announced at the collation centers. Now, concerning transmission electronically, yes, the results were transmitted to our server. We have a server here in Kaduna, and results were transmitted to the server where we watched the collation. And after results are announced at the local government and at the ward levels, they are now brought by the returning officers to our headquarters in Kaduna. We are now in the process of looking at those results, comparing with what our server has collected, and then we will just ratify those results that have been announced at the ward collation centers and the local government collation centers. So we do have these checks and balances. And like I said, we didn't want everybody rushing to Kaduna to come and check the results of the elections. We wanted them announced at the relevant local governments and ward collation centers.
All right, let's remain in Kaduna and ask Rebecca to react to what the chairperson of Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission has explained. You initially told us that there are some encumbrances, in the process. How would you react to her explanation?
We actually, the Voice to the People observers, we deployed 255 observers, one in each one in each ward, and then we had over 41 roving observers. Some were in our situation room. We observe a lot of things with the process. First of all, in terms of, there were issues with the arrival of materials, and because of the late arrival of materials in some places, some of the polling staff decided to do accreditation, and then people wait for the EVM machine to arrive. And so that, you would see that in some polling units, the number of people who were accredited is less than the number of people who actually voted. Because people got accredited, they waited. In some places up to 4 o'clock, they were still waiting. 4 p.m., they were still waiting for to start voting. And we kept SICOM informed of some of these issues, and they tried to resolve some of the issues. Then in terms of the collation of results, there are two issues involved. When you vote, a slip would fall into the ballot. There's a box at the bottom of the voting machine, and it contains like a receipt of who you voted for, the party you voted for. And I remember quite clearly in several of our interface with SICOM, stakeholders were insisting that they needed to have those manual ballot receipts cross-checked against the electronic results. So at the end of the elections, what happens is that at the polling units, they print out the results sheets, which the SICOM chairperson said is signed by the party agents, the polling staff, security agents, and is given to them. And then they also counted those those paper votes. And they went to the ward collation center. At the ward collation center, the results are also, they collated the results and announced them. But we had a challenge when it came to the local government collation center. some of the results were not announced at the local government collation center, and that's where we had people calling in to say the local government collation, the local government returning officer disappeared and didn't announce the results. That happened in some of the local governments, but not in all, in a few of the local governments, and we still have that. Actually, we even had a problem in Kaduna on Monday where the youths, they have been guiding the they ran away and left the election materials in the collation center, and they've been keeping watch over the machines because they said they didn't even wait to announce and slipped away. But we also had issues in one of the centers in Kaduna, I think it's in Barnawa, because the voting started late, and so when they were counting the votes and trying to collate the results, somebody came and stole away the generator. And so the presiding officer slipped into the dark, and that was where everything ended. So we have a lot of hitches here and there. Yes, the voting itself is quite easy, but there were a lot of issues because we got reports that some of the EVM machines were stolen in Java, in Ikara, in Igabi. Yes, we had reports, and they even gave us names, but we didn't. We said we'd take that as hearsay. We asked for evidence to show them thumbprinting in the farms. They said the people who took away these machines went away with the security.
All right, sorry, we lost the video signals from Kaduna. Once that is cleared up again, we will return to Rebecca Sako-John to take some more questions. Pascal and Ezenwa, gentlemen, excuse me, you both listened to the chairperson and Rebecca, of course, who's an election monitor, talk about what played out. Well, again, they were now responding to the entire value chain. But we're considering, let us say now, the e-balloting. Of course, every other step is significant along the way. Pascal, okay, what's your take? What's your reaction to some of the comments that they have made?
They're not dissimilar to comments that have been made by elections that INEC has run over the years. And it's always an improving process. And that is why I said we have to study what has come out of Kaduna and see what we can take from it. Like I also said to you, the machine itself, the voting machine itself, is always the simplest part of the whole thing. Then she's now highlighted all the other issues that make you want to, that you know, makes that value, makes you try to really evaluate what is going on. And they might not be so as forgiving in Kaduna. If you make the same mistakes or have the same issues in another state, you might not go lightly. You might. So INEC has to be very, 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 very careful in how it deploys this technology. Yeah, putting a machine out for 3 days and getting people to test it. Who are the people that will test it? Is it the man that is going to leave his farm and come and test this machine? Because this is the same man that's going to be incited on the day that he comes to vote and it doesn't work. I also understood that there's some, the accreditation process. We've seen even where we use our card reader and the voter register, people still try to impersonate others. So, and then where you have a situation where there's no a card reader in the process, how have they, you know, so there are so many questions to
right. In the value chain, as explained earlier, there are issues, you know, that played out in Kaduna, but that may not have cancelled the idea of electronic voting, because that is where the world is going. Let's turn to Ezenwa, you know, who is so critical about what happened in the place. Now, are you suggesting that Nigeria is not ripe for us to now begin to look towards e-voting as a pattern of voting in Nigeria?
No, I've been, as an election enthusiast, I am voting all the way for electronic, for us to go electronic. But like I said, it's just with a little caution. And everything that's happened from Kaduna has, given credence to my caution. I'm getting very insensitive about the gloating. There is this gloating about how successful. And I knowing what the process is and knowing what subnational elections have become, I needed to throw that caution. And the reason is simple. You need to test run. INEC is test running a lot of things. It's not just e-voting that we're contending with. We're also contending with not shutting down the economy because of elections. Okay, so INEC went to Lagos, the Ibejuleki or something, and then tested out how not to shut down the economy, and you still had 3%. So we need to test those issues. If we don't do so, we're going to have, just cast your mind back to 2014 when we were testing the smart card reader. We took it to the National Assembly, if you remember, for the National Assembly members to, they okayed it. We took it to the president, he okayed it. When it got to Bayelsa, the president's fingerprints could not be. And it became a national crisis. So one is not saying don't go electronic. I'm only saying, please, Kaduna should not be the reason. And much more than what can not even be said, is that the fact that the governor is pushing this takes away the whole idea for me. And once you take independence away from an election EMB, once you take that idea that, look, these initiatives are not their initiatives, 3 days, 3 days, you said you kept it. You kept the thing in a ward. Now, ward is, in one ward, if you know this environment, and I'm sure a lot of people know, the distance from one ward to another place might be like from here to Gwagwalada in many places. So you kept this machine in and expect people from those distances to come to get acquainted with. And now Rebecca is making it very clear that in many places, and not just the Voice of the People report that we have, many other reports have come to show that the excitement, the gloating about how successful Kaduna local government election was not
Where
right.
should be the starting point for INEC? Because invariably, in the next 10 years or thereabout, the world would have maybe moved to e-voting. Now, where are we?
Kilian, if the world has not, all the world has not, even in the United States, they don't all do e-voting. There are places in the United States where you still had manual. So it's not because we are getting this thing, it's convoluted now. Because
we saw the hanging chart. We saw the hanging charts in Florida, in the presidential election of the year 2000.
We're getting it convoluted that once you say e-voting, you need to consider there are places where you will not have to do e-voting, but we must begin to test run. INEC may need, after 2019 elections, the other off-cycle elections that may come before 2023, begin to test run on those areas.
And it doesn't stop. Some persons would argue it doesn't also stop other state electoral commissions, since you are quarreling with the word independent. It doesn't stop them from also trying e-voting because of what we have seen.
No, the governor who has taken the position of the chair of the chair of the SECOM in Kaduna has said that even those machines will be hired out. He has said so, and that states who want to do so.
I'm sure they will have some returns on their investment with regard to that. But let's return to our Kaduna Network studios. We understand the video signals are clearer now, and with the chairperson, that's Dr. Diko Audu. There are a number of points that have been raised, again, by our guests here, and then with Rebecca, with you in the studios there. But I would like you to put your reaction in context. Namely, yes, we have seen the e-voting machines at work, But at the end of the day, the freeness, fairness, and credibility of elections often would derive from the integrity of the process. So one question that I would ask for part of the context will be as follows. Who is the bona fide voter that can go to punch the machine and therefore register a vote or record a vote? Because if you recall, in the manual voting process, usually one of the modes of rigging would be either by INEC, under INEC, or under the State Independent Electoral Commission, is that when the electoral officers have voted for so long and it's close to, and it's almost closing, voting is almost closing, they will agree amongst themselves to tear the ballot papers, then they would thumbprint, and then stuff it. So can any person, who is not been verified, through the card or otherwise, still go there because it's electronic? Once you just punch, and then the votes will be recorded. That's one. Then, of course, e-voting will presume some normality. So absence of violence. If an e-voting machine is snatched or stolen or otherwise, what happens?
Thank you very much. Let me start by addressing the issue of how independent we are. The state government funds the Electoral Commission. So don't they have a right to say what kind of election they want to run? I believe INEC takes its own matters to the National Assembly. So if you use the same vein, would you say that they are not independent also? Anyway, let me leave that and move on to snatching of ballot boxes. Yes, the EVMs were snatched in certain places because people thought they could do business as usual, continue to thumbprint. And that was why we had asked INEC to let us use a smart card reader as an accreditation, as a checkpoint, because we have the voter register. If we had the smart card reader, it would definitely screen out people who may have slipped through the voter register verification exercise. But all the same, we have 4 poll staff at every polling unit. The presiding officer, the assistant presiding officer, the poll clerk, and the poll assistant. Now, the presiding officer and the assistant presiding officer are the 2 people that hold the authorization cards that authorize access to the machine. Now, if somebody is going to take a machine and continue to thumbprint, he'll have to use both of these people and the machine to be able to continue to thumbprint. But we also have the voter register. There's somebody else at the voter register. And the number of people accredited on the voter register must tally with the number of people that end up on the machine. And to cut out those kind of things was why we said the machine should print out a summary at the end of voting. So as soon as voting ends, the summary is printed. And once that summary is printed, that machine cannot record any more votes. I know that you talked about people as one of the 3 aspects of this entire process. People are a critical part of the electoral process. And if the people allow themselves to be compromised, then there's hardly anything that one can do except maybe to, when you prove it, to cancel the result of that polling unit. In a number of instances, EVMs that were snatched were recovered by the police. In fact, a couple of them are still with the police because there is a case attached to them. You can't stop some of these things happening, but you can minimize them. And in the issue of electronic voting, we have started. We can always improve. There is no process that starts and ends at one spot. There's always a possibility of improving. So Kaduna has set the pace. Let the country pick up from there and improve the process and make it better. Talking about keeping the EVM at a ward for 3 days. Yes, the wards are large in some instances, but these machines moved around. We invited people to come. People came to the machines before they went to their farms because they were interested in seeing what this new technology is. And I went around to see the demonstrations, and you could see the excitement in the faces of people. Is that what? It's so simple. Is that all? I said, that's all. And the machine even tells you thank you at the end of your voting. So what we need to take away from here is we have started. We are in a technology age where things are done by technology. So let's improve the process and move forward. I don't think that Nigeria should remain in the age of simple 100% paper ballots. I think we should move on. I think the populace, the Nigerian citizenry, is ready to move on. And I think INEC should pick it up and improve on the system and move on.
Thank you, Madam. You know, improving on it is a very interesting aspect of what you have said. Now, I think what Nigerians want to get from your final thoughts on this very conversation is the fact that the machines are not susceptible to be manipulated by anybody who may have stolen it, you know, with the intention of rigging election.
If you steal the machine with the intention of rigging election, you have to also steal the authorization cards. You have to also steal the people who are going to operate the machine. And so you have a lot of stealing to do.
Well, I'm sure that will be a tall order for the usual riggers of elections. But did the machines cost your commission an arm and a leg?
How much?
State governments, or if there are state commissions that may, wish to get similar machines, they might be advised. How much? What is the unit cost of a machine? If we have an idea.
I did not. I will not give you the cost of the machine because I didn't pay for the machine. I think whoever pays for it has the right to either divulge the cost or not to. But I do know that it's been done in Kaduna. It's possible. It can be done without shutting down the economy of the country.
The government of Kaduna State says it is prepared to hire the machines to any state that wishes to make use of it.
This independence. You see, Dr. Saratu just told us that she does not know. She does not know.
I think this is a topic for another day when we talk about removing independence in the name. So let's look at how Nigerians have been reacting to this conversation. We have some tweets here to read out to you. Let's see how Nigerians have been able to internalize this conversation. Now we have from Aminu Haliru. He says, I think electronic voting remains the only solution to solving the menace and challenges of electoral malpractices such as box snatching and over-thumb printing of ballot papers, etc.
Thomas Umbangum tweets, electronic voting by itself, though good, can be manipulated unless we have a change of attitude towards credible elections. All right, now Festus Akimboewa, who's a regular person on this beat, elections all over the world are keeping pace with modern life. Since electronic voting succeeded in Kaduna, it should be adopted for our national elections. But there'll still be plenty of concerns about reliability, safety, and privacy with electronic voting system. Therefore, the technology and process used in Kaduna elections should be updated before using it for our national elections.
Daily Jack Solomon has this tweet. Electronic voting is a good development to electioneering dynamics in Nigeria. But the truth must be told, we are not yet ready for usage on a national scale. In the Kaduna local government elections, the voters were eager, but most did not understand the basic work of the electronic voting machine. But that's been responded to by the chairperson of the Kaduna. Yeah. So it's not we're not sure that most of them did not understand. They understood what they were doing. Yes.
Now, Amechi Uche says we should accept the machine as a whole in order to check the recurring electoral malpractice in our elections. There may be technical hitches, but with determination and unbiased mind, we will get it right. Proper training should be given to electoral officers on its operation. We shall get it right and end these malpractices usually seen in our elections.
And this one is from KG Nesta. Why did it take 48 hours to release results not declared at each polling unit immediately after voting?
And from Moses Hassan, we are not always ripe for most things in Nigeria. When are we going to be ripe? We must start from somewhere. We have to go electronic. Why must we stick to manual procedure if not to make rigging simpler. We must go electronic and improve on it. And that's how we conclude this segment, yes, of the conversation. And of course, to appreciate our guests, you know, the ladies and the gentlemen that contributed immensely to this conversation. First, from Kaduna, let's thank the chairperson of the pioneer state when it comes to electronic voting, and that's the chairperson of Kaduna State Independent Electoral Commission, and that's Dr. Audu. Dr. Audu, thank you so much for your contribution this morning. And of course, Rebecca, yes, you've been so critical. In fact, you made it the conversation more interesting by raising those issues that are called in the process of using the electronic voting machine in Kaduna State. Thank you so much for your insight. And now back here in Abuja, Ezenwa Wangu, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. Thank you indeed for your usual contribution to this program. Thank you indeed. And of course, we have Ukenwe Pascal, the Deputy Director, ICT, INEC. He also made a useful contributions to this conversation. Thank you very much indeed. All right, now this is Good Morning Nigeria, and of course, you know, we have a second leg of conversation this morning. But for now, let's take a break.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You are still on to Good Morning Nigeria, and to kickstart our discussion on the Ramadan fast, let's take this background report by Musbao Dan Wahab.
Muslims all over the world have been waiting anxiously for another month of Ramadan, and when the new crescent beams to signal its arrival, we receive it with a sense of fulfillment and excitement. That's the usual spirit for this Allah's injunction.
Ramadan is prescribed upon all the believers, Muslims, the followers of the Prophet Muhammad, as it was prescribed upon those people before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
It is an injunction so sacred to the faithful, primarily to observe the daily fast from dawn to dusk while the month lasts and feel the burden of the less privileged. But scholars say Ramadan fast goals are beyond abstinence from food and drinks. It is time for the Muslims to reflect on the essence of their being, humanity, and strengthen the bond of brotherhood.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whoever fasts during the month of Ramadan perfectly will have his previous, his past sin forgiven. You make sure you go to where they are doing tafsir. That is how we are expected to fast during the Ramadan. Not only that, as sadaqah, out of your money, your food, your property, you give them out to give people who are in need.
Described as a month of total package of kindness of God, Malam Shehu Usman says the faithful must explore the benefits of the holy month through the recommended act in line with the practice of Prophet Muhammad.
The month of Ramadan is a month of prayer. I will call upon every Muslim in this country, even non-Muslim, that we should pray for our country, that we have to change all our bad behaviors to the good ones. We have to treat our neighbors in the manner that God had directed us.
Physical and spiritual preparations have been intense. Muslims are also shopping for the provisions required, while different species of dates are being patronized as the most recommended edible for breaking of fast.
It's a month of blessings, it's a month of great rewards, everything is multiplied. So one does look forward to that multiplication.
However, the aged, underage, the weak and those insane are exempted from the fasting. But those who have been longing for the special month of spiritual dedication are so fortunate to witness it. They are saying, Marhaban Ya Ramadan, welcome the month of Ramadan in which the Holy Quran was revealed.
All right, thank you very much, Musbah Dan Wahab, for that background report. Now, joining us are two guests in the studios here. First, we'd like to welcome Ustaz Abubakar Siddiq Muhammad. It's a member of the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. Ustaz Abubakar, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you.
And also here with us is the Chief Imam of Al-Hababiyah Mosque. That's Imam Fuad Adeyemi. Imam Fuad, pleasure that you are here with us on the program.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right, let's begin. We already had some things about the Ramadan fast from that background report. But let's go in a bit deeper. Is Ramadan the only fast on the Muslim calendar, year on year?
No, Ramadan is the obligatory fast, but there are other supererogatory fasts that you do either after every day or every Monday and Thursday. People fast, but Ramadan is the one that covers all. Is the obligatory that every Muslim who is able to fast, who is healthy, who is not on a journey, and if it's a woman, she is clean from her menses, that person must fast. Of course, there are laws governing that, and when you will repay the fast, or one who is aged and will fast with a lot of difficulty or will not be able to fast at all, then they are to feed indigent persons daily according to the number of the fast that
Now, what distinguishes Ramadan fast from other fasts in terms of a spiritual benefit, from Allah?
Once you abstain, the human anatomy is made in such a way that it needs break. So you are made to starve at some times for the benefit of the system itself. Fast generally will give you spiritual benefit, whereby you come closer to your maker, and it gives you benefit also in your own system because it cleanses. It's a complete overhaul of the system, and doctors are now speaking about this abstinence from food. Recently, I read about a system that is called 2-5. That you abstain from food for 2 days, for some hours, and then you eat what you like for 5 days. That you will be healthier than any other person that is not practicing that. If you put that into the perspective of people who fast on Mondays and Thursdays, then it covers that issue of 2-5. Yes, 2-5.
All right, Ustaz, thank you very much. Let's bring in Imam Fuad. Now, Imam Fuad, speak some more on who is eligible to undertake Ramadan fast, which is the obligatory fast.
Well, alhamdulillah, like our Ustaz has mentioned, fasting itself, I think we need to understand why God himself has asked us to fast. I think probably we'll be able to appreciate the essence of fasting now. When you have an equipment, you need to renew it while you use it. You have a car, at a certain time, it must be serviced unless it will be grounded. Your body must be clean at intervals unless you will hate yourself. The only thing you can use to clean your soul is fasting. No matter, there is no community in the world that does not know about fasting. The Jews, the Christians, the Zoroastrians, the Buddhists, all of them, the idea of the way they fast might be different, and the length and what they define as fasting may be different, but there is no group that they do. So what does that mean? What is the implication of that? So it means over the years, fasting is actually a natural thing in our system. And if anybody is avoiding it, I will not do, it means that person does not love his or herself. And if you also look at it, fasting is the only period where you are conscious of the beingness of the Supreme Being, no matter where you are coming from. You are conscious that wherever you are, God is monitoring what you are doing. That is why when you are fasting, you have your food in your home, you have your key, you can you can off the light and lock your door and eat, and you come out, say, today's fasting is very hard. But you won't do that for one thing. You are sure that God is there if you do that. And the implication is you will now realize that people around you, whatever you do, God is watching. He knows, and all the time He's with you.
All right, thank you very much. You know, what are the preparations needed, especially by a Muslim, you know, to be able to get prepared, you know, for this kind of, 1 month fasting?
One, first and foremost, you have the fear of God that I want to do this thing for God. Then two, physically, you need to see your doctor. You need to see your doctor, be able to confirm that you are strong enough to fast or not. If your doctor says you can't fast, you cannot say because it's not a Muslim you are not fasting. No. If he tells you that you are not strong enough to fast, you must abandon it. And when fasting, after the end of the 30 days of fasting, like Ustaz said, you have to repay it back when the doctor has certified you fit that you cannot fast. Then we should look for the moon. Yes, many people will be asking, why are we physically looking for the moon? Science has confirmed one thing to us now, that you can say that the moon is coming out at a particular time. In fact, they say it will be born and it cannot be seen with naked eye. So the essence of that looking or searching for the moon is for actually for you to be psychologically prepared that something is actually coming, because it is a command from God. And why that moon is also important, and it's not that of solar, it's also important here, because if it were to be a solar system that we are following, for example, like Christmas is on the 25th of December, it means those who are celebrating Christmas, they have been condemned to be celebrating it during cold season. So you can't have it in another season. But fasting, because God knows the implication, God knows what you need. That is why it's using lunar and not solar. So it means when you look for the moon, if you are alive, you have the opportunity of fasting for like 10, 20 years in your life. A time will come, you'll be fasting during rainy season. A time will come that you'll be fasting during when the heat is at its peak. But if it were to be on solar, a particular group will have been condemned to fasting during rainy season. But anywhere, you will have it.
All right, Imam Fuad, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Ustaz Abubakar. In addition to abstinence, what else does Ramadan entail?
It entails unity of the Muslim Ummah. Throughout the world, we may have different time zones, and we may have hours between one part of the world and another, but there will be few hours that the entire world, the entire Muslim community is fasting. And of course, one will break earlier than the other, but the idea is we are all fasting, and this is the fasting season. Fasting also in Ramadan speaks or teaches us peaceful coexistence, because the verse that makes fasting obligatory on us tells us that, O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed on you as it was prescribed on those before you, the Jews and the Christians. Meaning you are a community of faith, but before you started fasting, another community was observing fast before you. So fasting has brought us together, reminds us of the fact that we are of God, and this instruction is coming from our Maker. Fasting also teaches us discipline and timing. When am I to start the fast? I'm looking at the time. It will not be a minute before or a minute after. That time is specific. When do I break the fast? I cannot break it ahead of the time. I have to wait for the time like any other person. That discipline is there of timing. It teaches us to be grateful to what God has given us, because we are directed to look at those that are below us so that we can assist them. That by coming to the aid of the indigent, we are also earning more reward for the fasting. In short, the Prophet said, if you feed a fasting Muslim, you will get your reward. He will have his own. You will have another reward equal to his without diminishing anything from his own reward. So those who do not have will not go hungry, because everybody is vying with one another to see how many people will I be able to feed. In some parts of the country and the world, people are literally begging you, please come and eat with us. Somebody would create a canopy in front of their house and provide everything and be begging people he has not seen
in his life.
Please come and eat with us. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right. I think every Muslim looks forward to this obligatory abstinence, once in a year, perhaps because of the spiritual benefits therein, one of which, from what we learned from one of the respondents in that report, is that is the forgiveness of a previous sins. Could you expatiate on that?
Yes. It was said by the Prophet ﷺ himself that the first 10 days of fasting is forgiveness. The second is mercy, while the last 10 days it is emancipation. Then it will be unspeakable for somebody to fast for 30 days without his sins being forgiven, because most of the time, even when you want to break your fast, it is a time for you to ask Allah to forgive you, because it is also teaches us one thing, and that is sincere obedience to God. It is important you have to eat something in the early morning. And that is the time when most people find it difficult to take anything. When you are not hungry, they say you must eat something. Then when you are hungry, they said you must not take anything. That one pleases God, that this one follows me, he obeys me, then what he has done, I remove. I have what I call prerogative of mercy on him. So I forgive his sins because he's sincerely obedient. You can try it. Hardly can you find anybody that wake up around 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and say he wants to eat. It's very hard for you to see anybody around that style. It's not that there are none. We can get one or few people. But at a time around 2, 3, 4, 5, when you are seriously hungry, no matter the volume or type of food that you must have taken, around that time you'll be hungry.
Let me add, Imam, sorry, on the issue of forgiveness that he mentioned. We have, the Quran teaches that we have two angels, Raqib and Atid, with us, recording our good deeds and iniquities, our good deeds and our iniquities. But fasting, the angels cannot see the reward for fasting so that they may write it. Because God says, fasting is mine. Whatever the son of Adam does, the reward goes to him. But fasting is for me. He has done it for me, and I will give the reward for fasting. Whoever fasts, seeking Allah's countenance, not to be seen by men as I'm fasting, or to show off his devotedness to God. He does it seeking God's countenance, will be taken away from Allah's punishment, or from hell, or from a place that is not heaven, by 70 years or 70,000 years or so. So the forgiveness aspect is there. Fasting, seeking Allah's countenance, cleanses the,
right.
Are there
differing obligations for men and women during Ramadan?
No, there are none, except that women has extra obligation.
Mainly?
And that is in preparing food.
Is it an obligation?
No, well, because they are the one who takes care of the house. But I always say that it is a time God is giving women extra opportunity to have extra reward. That's what I always tell people. This is a time that I envy women because they fast the way men fast. They pray the way men pray. They wake up in the night to pray. And when their husbands are sleeping, they are already in the kitchen while they earn double reward. It is a time when women, they have so much opportunity that whatever they ask from God, God gives them. But we all have equal system of doing our fasting. We have equal rights, we have equal duties and responsibilities, but they have a little more that gives them a degree ahead.
In one or two words, let's talk on the charity aspect of this. How important is that?
It is even the main thing, because when you are fasting, you'll be able to understand the problem of those who are hungry. You'll be able to feel for them. You don't like you said, you don't need to wait for them to come to you, because you actually understand what they pass through. I've heard a big man in this country said he had never experienced hunger in his life. He said, if not for fasting, he wouldn't have known that there is a time that people can say they are hungry. So you can see it was in the pages of newspaper that the man said it. So when you also give people that are fasting, you give them something, then your reward, like I said, is after 700.
I'm just going on the basis of what you mentioned now. Let me ask Ustaz, can there be sympathetic fasting? I'll give you an example. Some persons will say, okay, they are not Muslims, but my Muslim brothers and sisters are having their Ramadan. I will also join them. Would the benefits also redound on such an individual?
If I know that I will invite them for iftar. They should come to my house and break the fast, because that is in line with what I mentioned of what fasting has taught us of peaceful coexistence. We recognize and accept that other communities, the Jews and the Christians, have fasted before us. So if a Christian fasts, he's not doing something new. He's not doing something Islamic. He's doing something that is enshrined also in his own
Let me also give you a practical aspect of that. The Cardinal Nayeka came to the mosque that they were in our mosque, that came together that he was fasting also that time. The American people, the ambassador, all of them, they come to the mosque, they give us money. In our mosque, we feed about 1,000 to 1,500 people every day during the month of Ramadan for the past 15 years. So these people came, all the staff of the U.S. Embassy, including the ambassador themselves, they sponsored the number of people that we fed that day, and they came to the mosque washing plates, serving food, and which shows that what is
All right, so let's take very quickly now the tweets coming in from our viewers on this. Mike Ayankwo has this tweet: Ramadan should be a period of sober reflection. It should also be a period of love, peace, and total reconciliation. People making trouble in the name of religion must desist from that, since every religion preaches peace, harmony, unity, and coexistence.
And from Sandy Michael Omokoji, while wishing our Muslim faithful happy Ramadan, I equally want to advise those governors who deliberately refuse to pay salary and provide good governance to their subjects not to participate in the ongoing Ramadan because they might fast in vain.
That's politics. Well, Aminu Haliru, Sare Makomako is one of our regular contributors. Now, Aminu Haliru has this tweet. I wish to... Sorry, the imam is distracting me. Okay. Aminu Haliru has this tweet: I wish to use this platform to congratulate our brothers and sisters in Islam to use the Ramadan period to pray for the peace and progress of our beloved country, Nigeria.
And Delajak Solomon, the whole point of the Ramadan is to demonstrate submission to God and keep the mind focused on spiritual plane. As our Muslim brothers and sisters deny their body food and water during this holy month, May God Almighty accept their prayers and supplications.
All right. Those are the tweets that we have, and that's, of course, how we end the conversation today. We'd like to appreciate Imam Fuad Adeyemi, who is the Chief Imam Al-Habibiyya Mosque here in the Federal Capital Territory. Thanks a lot for being on Good Morning
Thank you so much. We're very grateful.
And also would like to appreciate Ustaz Abubakar Siddiq Mohammed, a member of the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
And then, of course, to our brothers and sisters, we'll say Ramadan Kareem. But before we go, let's take our complimentary segments, and we're going on to sports very quickly.